Oh no, this is something special. Before we get into the rest of the video, I want to clarify the meaning of this series as well as its meaning to me. Halo is one of those franchises that genuinely could not ever be replicated again. Even if you had the exact same people working on it at this point, you could have the exact same moment leading up to its inception, the exact same thoughts that led to the pitch, and you still wouldn't get the same game today. Halo is a pure vessel of love, passion, and creativity when it is in the right hands. It's like the most perfect mix in a meal of sweet and savory. Never too much of one thing, but just the perfect amount of both to leave the hungry satisfied and ready for the next meal whenever it comes. Halo is also a product of its time. This was one of the games that came after the major push in the industry at the time after Half-Life's release. Basically helping everyone realize that FPS games don't need to be like Doom, where, quote unquote, story in a game is like story in a porn movie. It's expected to be there, but it's not that important. Story is something that can elevate an experience to the very top of the game and create something revolutionary. So when a small studio known as Bungie had already gotten their hands dirty with a game like Marathon in 1994, their stage was certainly set for 7 years later with the release of Combat Evolved, but not without some complications. Halo went through quite a bit of changes before it became what we know and love today, going from being an Apple Macintosh exclusive that was going to be a third-person shooter with so many more weapons and aliens, almost looking open world in some of the test footage, to then being purchased by Microsoft and being turned into an Xbox exclusive first-person shooter. It almost felt like the world was dragging Bungie into the heavens before their abusive relationship with Microsoft began. But unsurprisingly, Halo launched to massive critical and financial success and acclaim. Talking about how revolutionary the world they had created was, as well as the absolutely world-changing multiplayer they had created, which, even though it was exclusive to LAN parties as well as split-screen co-op, it would lead to one of my favorite series in the world being Red vs. Blue, and probably hundreds more Machinima projects just simply with its inclusion. I wasn't even alive when Halo was released, and when I finally had played Combat Evolved, it was a little after I had experienced my own first Halo game in full, which was Halo 4. My experience playing the Halo series was basically the reverse of how it should go. I would go over to a friend's house and play the first 3 missions of Halo 3 on an almost constant basis, and then actually play through the entirety of Halo 4 on my own. Then I would slowly make my way backwards and play through Reach, 3. Then I had found out I could play 2 on my 360 because of backwards compatibility. Then I found out there was actually a remaster of 1, which brings us to now. I got to experience the entire Halo franchise before I finally came back to the very beginning and actually experienced the magic that made so many people fall in love with this story. I had already thoroughly found my reason for loving these games through its characters, its worlds, the lore, the art, and the music. So now you find me revisiting one of gaming's greatest accomplishments and one of my favorite games of all time. So hey guys, it's Glitchy here, and welcome to a nostalgic Halo Combat Evolved review. So as you can tell, I think I have finally realized how I like doing some specific videos. So this is going to be much more similar to my Prime 4 review, where a lot of the VOD footage is actually going to be used. But the difference is that the little me in the corner is actually me. Not past me, but the real me. Hey guys! So, the version of Halo Combat Evolved I played was actually on the Master Chief Collection, but I also only played on the original graphics because even though the original way I played Combat Evolved was through the Anniversary Edition, I actually don't really like the remastered visuals for the most part. There are just specific sections of the game that I believe had a very specific vibe that was completely and utterly ruined, and honestly, it was just a Halo Reach asset flip. Hell, they didn't even make their case any better for that, since there was no remastered multiplayer, and at the time Anniversary came out, there was just a map pack for Halo Reach that remade some Halo 1 maps. Also, if I talk about the story, then I don't want to add any context clues and only talk about it from the understanding that the original players had. So, no explaining why the Pillar of Autumn was running away from the Covenant, no explaining Forerunner lore or anything like that, even if it does make some things make more sense nowadays. So, how about we jump right into it with the first mission being the Pillar of Autumn? Now, this opening cinematic is about as iconic as the rest of the game itself, with the ship approaching the ring in the distance, while the captain of the ship, being Captain Keyes, talking to Cortana about how he's confused that the Covenant, being the alien faction you fight against in these games, even followed the ship through hyperspace. And after he tells Cortana that he wants everyone in combat ready position, she reveals herself to be a hologram inside of the ship. You get to see the massive scale of the operation they've got going on here, too. So many moving pieces, as well as Marines just running around the ship. Plus, you get introduced to the world's #1 ladies' man, being Sergeant Johnson. He has a really minor role in this game, but he's a very important character later on in the series. And Marines start mobilizing, and then we finally get to us, actually waking up as the Master Chief. And since I've already played this game before, it's business as usual, especially since I know a few tricks to get into the real meat and potatoes, like walking backwards instead of actually heading into the command center of the ship, which instantly triggers a cutscene that by instinct I skip on accident. But at least I have a Magnum with a bit of ammo, so I can start unloading into Grunt Skulls. The majority of the first mission is making your way through the ship, so you can help Marines make it to escape pods, and as a start to the game, it really makes you feel the urgency of the situation you're in, finding the Covenant constantly breaking into the ship through airlocks as well as ambushing your fellow Marines. Hell, for the most part, you're the reason they're even able to win these fights they find themselves in, which really helps you feel like a big fucking badass you're supposed to be. Chief, for the most part, is a self-insert character. It's only recently that he's been taking his own route and becoming his own character in the story, which isn't a bad thing in my opinion, but here it was definitely intentional, and even with some of the cutscenes later, the questions he asks seem to be questions that you as the player would have if it was your first time playing. But back to the gameplay, you're going to find yourself tracking through a lot of hallways in this mission. It almost feels claustrophobic, like you're trapped in space with your enemies, or that they're supposed to be trapped in here with you. Even when you go through the vents in this mission, there's one time you find a couple of grunts lurking in there, and they just start screaming when they see you. It almost makes me think of the scene in the original Alien when the Xenomorph would find someone in the vents and just rip them apart. And after fighting enough and saving as many Marines as you can, you finally get the chance to escape yourself and make your way to the surface of the mysterious ring world in the mission simply known as Halo. Halo is probably one of the best missions in the entire game simply because of the way that it is built. Starting out with a cutscene where your escape pod crashes and all of your fellow Marines unfortunately didn't make it, you're alone and forced to explore this wonder of the universe as enemies around you are desperately trying to track you down. As you're basically running away, you kill a patrol group and find yourself at a strange structure that continues blasting energy into the sky. While you're there, you link up with a bunch of Marines who also landed nearby and have basically established a makeshift base here as a bunch of Covenant begin to attack. You take out like 5 ships worth of aliens, then you get a vehicle delivered to you so you can experience the rest of what the ring has to hold. Mysterious tunnels that Cortana expertly points out aren't man-made. And as you explore, you see the Covenant has obviously set up shop pretty quickly as they're being trolls by a bridge, not letting you cross. As you make your way through, just let me say the mission is structured in some of the most breathtaking shit nowadays. Sometimes I really struggle with immersion in games, but Halo has never made me have that issue. I wish I could play this game for the first time again, since you basically just get to explore. There's no wonder why Halo Infinite was so fun for me, because it literally just feels like this mission, but for an entire open world. I love the sense of wonder the game gives you while seeing these new structures. Like, even knowing what they are now, knowing what they do, knowing who put them there, it never fails to simply fill me with awe every single time I play through this mission alone. But getting back to the game, your main objective is saving Marines by killing aliens and helping them survive to get on a Pelican and get out of here. And that's really it for the most part. You don't even have to save them. You could actually kill all the Marines and speed things up so you can personally escape, which is funny because they actually have voice lines for if you fail to save the Marines in all the different areas. It's a level of detail you don't really expect to see in games this old, where you didn't really see developers show that your choices and actions matter as a player. But after going through the same loop of saving Marines 3 times in a row, then you get to escape and we can start talking about the third mission. The Truth and Reconciliation is a nighttime stealth light mission, where for the most part, the mission is to sneak onto a Covenant cruiser after Cortana has found out that Captain Keyes has been captured by the Covenant. The mission really gets you used to the sniper rifle in this game, which I'm realizing now that I haven't gotten to talk about a good chunk of the weapons, because for the most part, you don't really need to use a lot of the weapons in this game except for a select few. Like the Magnum, for the most part, is one of the most overpowered weapons in all of gaming. It's basically a mini pocket sniper rifle without having the ammo. The assault rifle is also useful because it just fills things with lead as fast as physically possible. With these weapons being as useful as they are, a lot of the other weapons get overshadowed until way later. It almost feels like Bungie realized they needed to limit ammo since the playtesters were only using like 3 weapons. But back to the mission at hand. You're basically just shooting a bunch of aliens in a canyon to make your way to the tractor beam so you can invade their ship. And right when you get to the tractor beam, though, the Covenant introduces a new enemy in the Hunter, which is this giant orange brute that has a big old cannon that'll also beat you to death if you give it the chance. But here's a funny little oversight that hasn't been changed since the Bungie days. They die to one shot in the back if you use the Magnum or the sniper rifle. So this big dangerous enemy becomes absolutely trivial in this mission and most other missions if you have the most common gun in the game. And after you beat the Hunters, you finally get to make your way onto the ship, which you get to see a little bit of their architecture in the ambush from the first mission, but you get to see it in full here. Lots of purples everywhere and everything is very rounded. It's a stark contrast to the Marine ships, which are very dull colors like whites and grays, as well as having very angular shapes to basically everything they have. There's also a lot of aesthetic lighting with blues and even more purples, just barely keeping everything lit. Making your way through the ship, you find Keyes and backtrack your way to a hangar bay so you can get on a ship, and Keyes uses it to absolutely murder some Hunters, and we can finally start to attack the Covenant to try and gain a foothold in this fight, in the next big mission being the Silent Cartographer. The Silent Cartographer is another extremely iconic mission that starts you out on storming a beach full of aliens and making your way around an island to investigate Forerunner facilities so that you can find out what the fuck the Covenant are doing, as well as making your way deeper into the ring. And let me be honest, this is easily my least favorite mission in the entire game, besides one, which we will get to later. And I don't know why, but it strikes me as so boring. You just make your way into one facility and see the door close before you, so now you need to go somewhere else to open the door. Go back to the now open door to make your way into another facility so you can get a map of the Halo so you can get to the control center. It's very general descriptions of gameplay, but that is just exactly what the mission is. I know I've had a lot to say about how the mission looks as well, but this is just a beach island. A lot of the architecture is just kind of the same, and I didn't really see anything unique besides what you enter the next mission through at the end of this mission, where you find out where you fought 2 Hunters was actually a door that leads to the path that takes you to the control center of Halo. It's also really funny because in all the new Halo 1 remake footage that they've been showing, it's only been of the Silent Cartographer, so my personal hype levels aren't as high as they would be if they would have shown something like the second mission or anything like that. So with all that out of the way, I just want to move on to the next mission, being Assault on the Control Room. So, as I said in the Prime 4 video, I have an unhealthy obsession with cold areas, and this is absolutely no different. I absolutely love this fucking level because of how it plays. You're basically making your way down a mountain if you really think about it. Just the way you need to do it is going through a bunch of Forerunner facilities and shooting aliens. But the main mission here is basically getting to the control room so Cortana can solve how we can get off the ring, as well as finding its purpose. This is another one of those levels where I personally love the environment it puts you in. For a good chunk of the mission, you are so far above the world. Like, you're quite literally on bridges that are so far above the canyon that Banshees, being the Covenant's Air Force, are almost always shooting at you since you're so far up. Plus, the different rooms you find yourself in are also built in a way that, even though they're pretty similar, they're just different enough to where you don't know exactly where to go. Plus, almost all of these areas start out with all the enemies being unaware that you're there, so if you play your cards right, you can actually melee all of the enemies and get through the rooms without even taking any damage or getting into a huge fight. It's a fun little challenge to put yourself through. But about halfway through the mission, you'll finally get out of the higher up facilities and you'll get onto the ground, where you get to use a new vehicle, being the Scorpion. The Scorpion is a big, badass tank whose job is fucking shit up, and business is good. Seeing this monster of a tank never fails to make me smile in any Halo mission it shows up in, but for the most part, the mission is pretty linear in the way it progresses, going through this big old canyon in the Scorpion and making your way through even more Forerunner facilities, fucking shit up until you finally make it to the control room. And when you finally find it, this giant hulking facility, easily the largest you get to see in this game, when you make it inside, there are these giant doors and corridors. It helps you realize the grandiose scope of the operation that they were running on the ring, especially when you make it into the actual control room, which has this giant hologram of the ring that spans the entire room almost. So Chief throws Cortana inside the terminal he finds inside the room, and she starts analyzing and almost starts breaking down as something has obviously gone wrong as she realized the true purpose of the ring, and sends Chief away with a set of coordinates and tells him he needs to stop Captain Keyes from accessing a weapons cache that isn't really what it says it is, which is our absolutely legendary intro to the next mission, being 343 Guilty Spark. Guilty Spark is my personal favorite mission in Halo 1, and I am sure that there are lots of people that would share the exact same opinion. There's something about it that almost turns Halo into a horror game for a singular mission, but I don't want to spoil it before we get there, so I just want to go through it step by step compared to how I've been doing with all the other missions. Guilty Spark starts with you dropping out of a Pelican into the mission after watching a cutscene of grunts and jackals just running away into the swamp. You find another Pelican that has crashed almost instantly. Not to mention, this mission is extremely dark. Not just in tone, but also in looks. As you're going through the swamp, you see things moving in the shadows before you come to the entrance of another Forerunner facility. And as you walk up, you see even more Covenant running away as there's constant gunfire coming out of the tunnel with sounds you as the player should recognize as assault rifles. You can even see friendly markers on the map as you approach the entrance, but when you finally make your way inside, there's no one there. There's this deep hole where an elevator makes its way up to you, basically begging you to go down into the facility. So far, the only enemies you're seeing are jackals as well as grunts. There's little to no elites, meaning there's literally no leadership for the forces that are here. As you make your way deeper into the facility, you find hallways literally coated in blood, as if elites were slaughtered and then their entrails were just sprawled all over the walls. And if you look closely into some of the rooms, you'll find this dripping green residue coming from the ceiling. There's nothing like it in the game, and it draws so much attention because of that. You're finding so much dead Covenant, and then the level comes to a standstill where you find your first Marine, and he's just hunched up against a wall in fear as he holds his Magnum pointed directly in your direction, and he just continues to fire, telling the Chief to stand back, that he won't be turned into one of those things. And he never stops for as long as you stand there. The only way that you could stop him from shooting you is if you kill him. This room is also different from the others, especially in Forerunner structures, where there is a lot of green lighting. the exact same green lighting as the substance we saw dripping from the ceiling. In the same room, you find dead Covenant, as well as destroyed structures that allow you to progress to a room with a light bridge that will take you to the turning point in this mission. Finding dead Marines for the first time as a cutscene plays, Chief opens up the room he comes to and hears noises behind him. As a corpse falls into his arms, he starts to investigate, taking a recording out of a soldier's helmet where he sees the journey that Keyes and the other Marines went to inside the facility. They find strangely mangled corpses of elites, as well as finding others that look like they've been fired upon by their own forces. Then they finally make their way to the same door Chief found himself at, and something is wrong. When Johnson makes contact with another squad that says they've made contact with new forces that aren't the Covenant, and as the message ends, they find themselves neck deep in shit themselves, as this new force reveals itself to be the Flood. These infectious organisms that do two things: infect violently and spread their hive mind. The message ends, and Chief finds himself stuck in the middle of a room with hundreds of infectious spores that want nothing more than to make him a part of them. He is forced to fight like hell to get back out of the facility, and the intro of the Flood is easily my favorite moment in this game. There is so much aura around this mission, and the environmental storytelling is something else entirely. It subverts expectations while bringing so much tension, especially with the soundtrack. As a kid, this mission fucking horrified me. Seeing these things just rise back from the dead after I had shot them full of hot metal. Another favorite moment I have in this mission is when you think you find your way out through an elevator, and instead it takes you deeper into the facility, and you just see blood coating the walls all the way down, bringing you deeper into hell that you need to find your way out of. You just barely find your way out, rendezvous with more Marines, and fight like hell to a strange structure that brings you a new friend by the name of 343 Guilty Spark. And he is the monitor of this installation, and since the Flood have broken containment, he must assist us in containing them before they infect the entire galaxy. Which unfortunately brings us to what is easily the most hated mission in the game, including the whole community and myself, which is called the library. Wait! Before we get into that, this section of the video is actually being added because I've realized I don't really talk about some of the really important aspects of the game that don't really apply to one specific level. So we're going to call this the intermission before I jump headfirst into the library. So throughout the entire video, you've been hearing the music of Halo. Extremely iconic, and for the most part, any gamer has heard at the very least that iconic menu theme with the choir, and you get the gist of it. But all the music in this game, and yes, I mean all of it, is so fucking impactful for every single level. Like in the last mission, the track Devils and Monsters creates so much tension when you first meet the Flood. Without it, I don't know if as a kid I would have been so horrified without that track playing in my ear on a constant basis. And as I'm trying desperately to get away from this new enemy, under cover of night during the beginning of Truth and Reconciliation, if you play the music correctly, it makes you feel like you're on a low-key sniper mission trying to get in and out as quickly as possible. Tracks like Perchance to Dream, only playing as you enter a room full of sleeping grunts, makes a perfect background track to bash their skulls to. There is literally nothing like the Halo 1 soundtrack besides the two games that come after it. Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore are truly geniuses when it comes to writing tracks for video games, and this game would not have been the same without them. But now I want to move on to the weapons in this game, and I know that earlier I mentioned that since the Magnum is so overpowered, that why would you use another weapon since it's the one you usually always spawn with, but that doesn't mean a lot of the other weapons in the game aren't worth it if you run out of ammo in the Magnum. There aren't as many weapons as you'd imagine in this game, but there are still quite a bit. The human weapons we've already covered, the assault rifle, the magnum, as well as the sniper rifle, but the two we haven't are the rocket launcher as well as the shotgun. The Spanker rocket launcher is one of my favorites of literally any shooter, with its unique design where you have to load this dual-barreled shell as well as spin it to switch the rockets after you fire one of them. It's full of character and power and makes you happy whenever you see it, as usually it's a get out of jail free card whenever you find an enemy that you don't particularly like to deal with. And oh my god, the shotgun. This is easily what most people think of when it comes to hard-hitting, badass, fun to use video game shotguns. I swear Bungie took a lot of inspiration from the original Doom with this. There's so many shells in one unloading of the weapon, and I feel like this thing is damn near a sniper rifle at some points. Maybe it's loaded with slugs. All I know is it rips through basically anything you point it at, and the sounds it makes are satisfying as fuck. Speaking of satisfying sounds, there's no way I couldn't bring up the Needler Super Combine at the top of noises I could hear every single waking moment and never complain about. There's something euphoric about hearing and seeing the needles fly at whatever you fucking hate looking at. Then finally see them all explode in this cloud of pink energy that no other weapon in any FPS has been able to replicate besides the BFG 9000. Then you have weapons like the plasma rifle and pistol, with the rifle being really good for fighting elites and jackals since it has a constant fire rate and lasts for a while before needing to cool down. And then there's the plasma pistol, which can be overcharged to shoot at elites, instantly bringing their shields down. So if you combo it with the magnum, then it makes for a devious 1-2 punch of take the shield down and place a round between their fucking eyes. There are so many unique ways to use the guns in this game as well that I just don't think it would be fair to ignore them. And that's why I had to come back to write this section into the script, because the weapons as well as the music are all a part of what makes Halo so special. But with that, let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming. The library is the worst mission in the game simply because of repetition. This level only fucking consists of the exact same goddamn hallways while throwing mountains of flood at you. This is also where the infamous rocket flood comes from, because some smartass at Bungie decided to give the enemy that will just run at you a rocket launcher, especially when they are directly up your fucking ass, elbow deep. It is more annoying than absolutely anything, especially when you have to sit in one spot and wait for Guilty Spark to open a door just for you to make your way through the exact same fucking hallway all over again. The main objective in this mission is to find an object called the Index, which is the key to activating the Halo and containing the flood. At least that's what the ball is telling Chief. But truly and utterly, there is damn near nothing I can say about this mission that hasn't already been said. The entire community has done nothing but bash this level every single moment, any time that they can. And there's damn good reason for it. Like, seriously, when basically the entire fucking game is peak and you have this stinky pile of shit, it stands out like a sore thumb. Like if someone threw paint on the Mona Lisa. Like if somebody nuclear bombed the city of Rome. To quote one angry nerd, what the fuck were they thinking? This level is the most uneventful bullshit besides what you have to put up with the entire time of dealing with it. It is so unfortunate that this level exists. Like, they could have literally done anything else before this and it would have been infinitely better. So how about we just get on with it and get to 2 betrayals. 2 betrayals brings us back to the control room, where Cortana reveals that if Halo is activated, it won't just kill the flood, it'll literally kill everything in a very large radius of the ring, which will make it so the flood can't eat anything and actually spread. And Guilty Spark doesn't even refute the claim, and he downright admits that he just never lied. He just assumed that Chief knew what he was talking about, and Otherwise, this mission is basically just a reverse of Assault on the Control Room, where instead of making your way down from the facilities, you actually need to make your way up into the facilities using Banshees, so you can bring down generators so that just in case, Guilty Spark can't find a way to fire the ring without the index. Throughout the entire mission, you're fighting 3 different types of enemies: Covenant, Sentinels, as well as the Flood, and I won't lie, this mission feels a bit lazy, and to be honest, is literally just Assault on the Control Room backwards, which I know I said earlier. But besides the encounters being a little difficult, since most of the enemies on Heroic will just fuck you up if you let them, like you could see in the streams a good chunk of the time, I'm usually not on full health, and it's also pretty annoying because the pacing of this level is very, very slow. Having to find new ways to get up to the generators as well as having to fight through all the enemies, it just seems like they were smoking the same kind of meth that they were when they were making the library. I also just think a lot of the atmosphere from the Flood sections doesn't carry over because I don't feel like this mission was made in mind to have these scary ass enemies in it. Nothing really changes about the scenery besides the fact that the Flood is here. So I really just want to jump into the next mission, which is really good, which is simply called Keys. Keys is another one of those missions where it shares a lot of similarities with another mission from earlier, in this case being Truth and Reconciliation, but it also brings a lot of original ideas. So after the last mission ended, Cortana attempted to teleport Chief back to the Covenant ship so we can retrieve Captain Keyes, as it seems he's been captured again, as the Flood are wanting to repair the Pillar of Autumn so they can leave the ring and start their cycle of infecting the galaxy. But this level is honestly so good in my opinion. I just love how most of the mission takes place in a ravine after you fall out of the ship, and you have to desperately try and find your way back inside while fighting your way through Flood and Covenant in cracks and corridors. It feels so claustrophobic, and it's not like things get better when you get back inside of the ship because you're fighting through hallways and broken down sections of the ship that have been ripped apart by the Flood. This doesn't even consider the fact that instead of saving Keyes as well as all the imprisoned Marines, no, you find him infected as this ginormous brain that the Flood has been attempting to turn him into, keeping him alive as they try and dig out the location of Earth inside of his brain, learning how to pilot the Pillar of Autumn. And he resisted the entire time. For the sake of humanity, he lasted just long enough for Chief to get to him and retrieve his implant so he could escape and save the universe from the Flood. And now, since the implant has been retrieved, we can escape from the Covenant ship and make our way back to the Pillar of Autumn to end this nightmare once and for all. As we make our way to the final mission called the Maw. The Maw has the same tradition as Keys as well as Two Betrayals, where it takes an old level, turns it on its head, and this takes the first mission of the game and turns a lively ship that had hundreds of Marines on it into a ship where it's only full of aliens as well as space zombies. You even make your way through a lot of the same areas as you do in the first mission, where you get to the main command center of the ship. And at this point, Cortana gets slotted back into the ship where she started, and now we have a plan. Cause the ship to explode and destroy the Halo ring with it. Although, Guilty Spark has now crashed the party, and he sure as shit isn't going to let us destroy what is basically his fucking house. The Maw is basically a huge boss fight against Guilty Spark, trying to stop you from destroying the ring after you make your way through the ship. Since there are so many Flood here, it's just a huge battle to get through, especially during the generator section, which is the main fight. It's this huge room where you have to hit a couple switches to open up generators so then you can precisely put some grenades inside the engine. And you do this 4 times, and after you do that, it's go time. You get a timer to start a very important tradition in the Halo franchise, being the Warthog run, and I will say, they may have started pretty weak, but it only gets better from here. And after running through what is basically the internals of the ship, you have one more loss before you make your escape in the Pelican that has been flying you around the whole game, but more specifically the pilot, which I never talked about because her character isn't really important to the overall story, but the loss of Foehammer means that the only 2 people we really need to escape are ourselves as well as Cortana. So we're running away and finally get to the end, and there are plenty of Flood trying to stop us from escaping as we hop on a jet to get the fuck out of here. Desperately running into the jet, the Flood right on our ass. The Chief punches it and finally escapes the ring while the Pillar of Autumn detonates, taking the ring with it. A job well done after the dust and echoes left behind of a dead ring and a universe saved, even if all the people we went to the ring with are gone and dusted. Besides Johnson. So, after all this, I can really say there is definitely a reason why this game became an instant classic. The big reason as to why this shit made Xbox a household name was because of how good it was. The series only gets better from here up to a specific point, but the roots in this game made a gorgeous trilogy for the most part. So many good games came from this one. Plus, without this game, Bungie would not have gone on to make some of the best shooters in all of history. Even if right now they seem to be in a pretty rough spot overall, I'm pretty damn excited for the remake of Combat Evolved, as I was actually a huge fan of Infinite. Even if I am skeptical of the rest of what Halo Studios may have to offer, this is one of my favorite games. One of my favorite series of all times, despite some of the glaring issues near the end of the game. Overall, the entire picture is pretty damn good. Hopefully, at some point in the future, I get to cover Halo 2, but I really want to sprinkle in these retro reviews since there's a whole lot of good stuff coming out right now. But since I streamed this, I really wanted to talk about it in full, since it's just one of those games that is truly so important to me. So I want to ask you guys, what's your favorite part of the Halo franchise? Leave a comment down below letting me know what your answer is, and if you'd be so kind, please like and subscribe, as it would really help out the channel. I'll see you guys when I see you. This is Glitchy, signing off.